a lot of coaching, and I'd love to try to get some free coaching out of you for our audience here.
Okay.
You mentioned what Andy told you, but you had a background in real estate investing. You had been doing flips for a while. Let's say I work a 9 to 5 and I'm listening to this on my way home from work, never done a deal, want to get into real estate just because, like you mentioned, it's a great path to financial freedom.
Yeah.
What would you say of the million strategies that are out there? You've mentioned wholesaling a lot. That's one of your big strategies. There's flipping, there's rentals, there's all kind, and then subcategories within those. What should I do first if my goal is the biggest positive financial impact as quickly as possible?
Okay, that's key that you clarified. Okay, so if that's what we're talking about, biggest impact as fast as possible, I'll tell you, and this is, great proof is in the pudding, right? So my daughter, who's at the time was 24 last year, came to me and said, I know you're a real estate investor, obviously. I want to start investing. What do I do? What would you suggest? Where do I start? Should I wholesale? Should I flip? What do I do? And I said, listen, you have a job. She works full time. If I were you and I was in that position, if I was starting over, I would probably start as a flipper. In my opinion, it's the lowest barrier to entry into real estate. Now, that's pretty opposite of what you might find if you just start Googling things like this question, because a lot of people say, no, start as a wholesaler. You don't need any money and you can start making some fast cash. I disagree with that. I don't agree with that logic at all. Here's why. When you're a wholesaler, first of all, I had this conversation with a family member who was emphatic that house flippers have all the risk and wholesalers have none. And I said, really? Because I spend about $30,000 on marketing every month, and there's no asset tied to that. It goes out into the ether, and I may not get a call. I may not get a deal that month. You put money into a house that's worth more than you paid for it when you buy it, and it's consistently worth more as you renovate it. So at no point, theoretically, is your money at risk if you bought it right? Who has more risk? You got to be kidding me. But still, I would say start as a flipper, because as a wholesaler, when I flipped first and then became a wholesaler, I had the advantage of knowing how flippers think. I know what they're looking for. I know how to speak their language. I know what a deal looks like to them. So I was so much better equipped to bring them a deal and say, this is why it's a deal, and answer all their questions before they ask them. So that's not always easy to do. And there is money involved a lot of times, especially if you don't have a lot of time. You have to marketing, right? Direct mail and buying lists and all this stuff. It's not always easy. So for me, my daughter came to me a year ago and said, I want to start doing something. I said, okay, here's what you're going to do. I think you should start by flipping, get on every wholesaler's list, including mine, but not exclusively mine. Get on everybody's list. Every deal that comes into your inbox, I want you to make the offer. And I showed her how to calculate ARV and how to understand at a basic level how to guesstimate the renovation. And I said, make an offer on every single one. I don't care what they're asking. Make an offer for what you think you can pay and send it to them. So I taught her this. I built her a little, and I'm talking rudimentary spreadsheet about how to get your maximum allowable offer. It was very basic. It's so basic, it's embarrassing to even show to people, but it helped her get in that 80-20 range, right? She could sift through 80% of the deals. So she did this. Within a month, she had 3 deals.
Wow.
24-year-old young lady who's living at home with no real estate experience. She just went for it. She's aggressive. She's got no reservations about going for it. She's very proactive, which is half of what it takes to actually get started, right? That's why I named my podcast Just Start Real Estate. I know what it's like to sit around and do nothing. Getting started is half of it. Just showing up, right? That people say showing up is the biggest, as far as winning a battle. You have to get started. And I think flipping, because you can use hard money for flipping. You can use private money. And by the way, while you're doing your first deal or while you're looking for your first deal, as a house flipper, you should always be raising money. You should always be in the raising money game. And what does that mean? Talk to people. Just tell everyone what you're doing. It doesn't have to be gross and aggressive, I need money for this deal. Just start talking about what you're doing. Right. People will come out of the work. You'll be surprised. Document it. Talk about it. That's how I found it. When I started flipping houses, I didn't know what I was doing. Before I finished my first deal, which I funded myself using a mortgage and all my personal savings, before I was finished with that, I had 2 private investors that were willing to fund all my deals going forward. I never spent another dime of my own money. So we just talked about it. I wasn't super, I told you already, I'm not salesy. I don't have any sales skills. So it was just me and my wife just being honest about what we're doing, going to RIAs and meeting people and shaking hands. And it just, you meet people. And people, by the way, private investors, They don't invest in your company. So don't think you need this prospectus or you need this spreadsheet or all this history. Most private investors do not care. They're investing in you. They believe in you. They trust you. They like you. They'll give you money. Because I was in a room with experienced investors back then, people who had way more credibility than I had. And I was getting money because they just identified with my wife and I. The first people that ever gave us money, I asked them eventually, not at first because I wanted to make sure that they were going to do the deal. But eventually I said, why did you fund our deal? Like I started naming people. They've done way more deals than us. You know they have more experience. And he's like, you and your wife remind me of me and my wife when we were starting out. That was it, man. That was why they gave me hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest with. I reminded them of them, not because I had done anything so great before that. That's
Yeah.
key to remember, because people get caught up on, I don't have any experience, no one will give me money. Sure they will. Just be you and talk to people.
Hey, thanks for joining for this segment of the interview with Mike Simmons. If you want to check out the full interview on the podcast, go to the Living Off Rentals podcast on any podcast player. You can also join us in the Living Off Rentals Facebook group. It's an awesome community. You can ask your questions or start a conversation. I hope to see you there, but if not, I will see you in the next video.